you so much. And so lovely connecting with you, to be able to see you in person and speak to you. So I think it's just a completely different experience.
It is.
So thank you for being part of the Coffee Conversations to Milaap. I know that you have been a very active member on the group, sharing your thoughts as a psychologist, as someone who works a lot with women. Thank you so much for interacting with our members and being part
Well,
of this series today.
definitely.
So before we start, I wanted to share a little bit about what I read about you, and I found it very interesting. You're a psychologist, you're an urban monk, and a women's health coach. And through positive psychology and mindful therapy, that you're working with a lot of mothers and young women. And you also write regularly about mindfulness,
Yes.
and that you have your work is currently through an organization called Urban Shakti.
Yes.
I also saw that you have done a lot of interesting courses on mindfulness, existential well-being, counseling, NLP. So I'm sure there is so much more to you and your work. So could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, yeah, so it's pretty much most of what you've said. That is, I deal with women. I take care of women's health, women's emotional well-being, and I also try to, help women understand their menstrual cycle and how it does govern just about everything that they do. So Urban Shakti is largely about trying to help women and couples because the man also needs to understand, why his woman is this way. So I try to, tell people about how the menstrual cycle is very important, how menstrual health is something that most of us really don't talk about because it's a taboo subject. But the kind of emotional, issues around women or just about how they function in society has got a lot to do with, their cycle. And that's what Urban Shakti is doing at the moment. We're just like talking to a lot of corporates, we're talking to a lot of women, getting them to understand, the connection between, their mind and the body via the menstrual health cycle. And then explaining to couples as well, the relationship dynamics that are revolving around the cycle alone, including parents also. So a lot to do with the woman as a parent, as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, as a colleague, as a manager, whatever roles that she is, doing at the moment has got a lot to do with her menstrual cycle. And when I say menstrual cycle, it's just not 7 days; it's the whole 28-day um, period. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, very interesting work and interesting topic to discuss, I think, with both genders. Very important for the other gender to also be be able to understand, not just empathize. I think that's not completely what women want these days, but
No.
more understanding, and
Yes.
also to bring up a lot of things which are not comfortable, right? So you said you work a lot with couples. I'm sure in your work you would have also come across couples who are trying to save their marriage, couples who are trying to work their relationship, as well as
Yes.
couples who are now on the verge of understanding that they were not meant to be together, right?
Yes.
I was also going through Urban Shakti, your website, and I see that you've been writing a lot of wonderful articles. And I went through some of them, and there is one particular article that is such a wonderful topic of discussion, as well as very difficult for all of us in general. But true for cases where there is a separation or a divorce or a breakdown of a marriage, which is about forgiveness.
Oh, yes. Yes.
It revolves around the topic of being able to forgive,
Yes.
not being able to forgive,
Yes.
And then why when someone is ready to forgive, they still keep seeking for forgiveness from the other partner. Can you tell us a little bit about your work, and where do you see couples struggling with this concept, especially couples who are divorced or are going through divorce?
So as far as forgiveness is concerned, it's a very tricky aspect. I mean, for both parties, going through the divorce, and even once the divorce is done, right? Once that separation has come into place, when I sit with my clients and I try to, sometimes the word forgiveness itself is not met very um, favorably. They hear the word forgiveness and people get very upset. I mean, that's not even sometimes that word forgiveness itself is a little difficult. Like sometimes I'm not even able to insert that word into the conversation, because that's that's the kind of emotional distress that's going on within the person. So the word forgiveness is also not very welcome. I think because people feel that when you say the word, when you say forgive, they feel that it's all about letting somebody else get away with something that they have done to them. They feel, am I actually letting this person get away with something he or she has done to me if I forgive this person, especially when it's about your heart, when matters of the heart, when you've just had your heart shattered into a million pieces. I completely understand that there is a lot of, what do you say, that it's very difficult, first of all, especially when we're so focused on how you've been betrayed, or how this has been done to you, or how you weren't respected, or whatever the issue may have been. When you have when your heart's been shattered, it's so hard to even bring in this idea of forgiveness. And so many people want to withhold that forgiveness. They don't want to even, they don't want to even give a little bit of it. Forget about, I completely forgive you. I forgive you entirely. They don't even want to even hear that word forgiveness. It's something like, protecting, holding witness, or you want to protect yourselves from getting hurt again. And this is why most people don't want to, let themselves forgive. So withholding our forgiveness is one way that our ego attempts to assert control over a particular situation it has zero control of. So a lot of things that we do in relationships has a lot to do with warding off even the vague hint of losing control. So the minute we understand that we're losing control in certain aspects of a relationship, we it becomes a control issue, and that time we don't want to. So yes, so forgiveness is a very tricky subject. There is something about this idea of letting somebody else get away with something, especially when you've just had your heart shattered into a million pieces. And many people wonder whether by forgiving, they're actually allowing this person to get away with something he or she has done to that person. So many people do withhold their forgiveness to protect themselves from getting hurt again. So withholding our forgiveness is one way that our ego tries to assert control over a particular situation that it doesn't have any control over. And a lot of aspects of our relationship, or a lot of things that we do, right or wrong, in a relationship, has to do with warding off even the vague hint of losing control. So the minute we find that we're losing control over certain aspects in a relationship, we start messing around with the dynamics, a lot.
So you're saying that the ability to not forgive is
Yeah.
basically a way of holding on control especially even in a case where there is a separation and divorce and people don't live together, right? Because you're not sharing any physical space.
No.
So that's one way of saying that I still have control, and this forgiveness is something I'm not going to give you, and I hold it again.
Exactly, because you still want, see, everything that we do in life is about control, right? The minute people start losing control of situations, they get into panic mode. The reason many people, for example, have issues with flying, right, is because we are not in control of that flight, right? Our safety, our security, our well-being, everything is given to that the pilot at that time. So it's like an external thing, right? It's not within us. So the minute that we give our control, our grounding to somebody else, we start losing, we start shaking a lot. So forgiveness, withholding forgiveness is one of those things. You're trying to assert control over a situation which you clearly don't have any control of. The separation is done. The person has, or whatever has to happen between the two of you has happened. But still, our ego is not ready to accept this. Our ego is still trying to, grasp onto something, some bits of, some kind of memory, some aspect, and still trying to, protect itself. So it's also possible that the minute we kind of let go, we might shatter completely because the ego is so dominant. That's why they say forgiveness is so important for yourself. It is so important. It's an intellectual exercise. It's something that we need to do ourselves, because if we are not able to forgive, or let's say withholding forgiveness is like going into a gunfight with a paper shield. It's not good for you. It just results in a lot of emotional injury, not even to the other person, but to yourself. So the process of releasing or forgiving is a slow process. It's a gradual process. It's obviously you can't do it overnight, because if you do it overnight, the ego kind of collapses. Your identity, your sense of self will shatter.
And that's not possible, right? I mean,
No.
it won't happen, and your original or the old self will jump in again and again to say, hey, what are you doing? Like you were supposed to hold on to that anger and resentment because what happened to you was not right, and you didn't deserve this, and you deserve better. So I think the what you're saying is, let that thaw slowly, let the awareness, the fact that you can make a difference, come in slowly, as well as I think observe how you feel when you decide, even for a moment or for a minute, to let go and say, okay, I choose to forgive you. It's nothing to do with the way I feel. It has nothing to do with what you have done, right?
Yeah.
So maybe people can make a start there, slowly, understand that it's a process. Things don't need to change overnight. I think a lot of burden and load could be lifted from there.
Yes.
I also wanted to ask you, there is another side to forgiveness. That is, you are in the space to forgive, but you realize that your spouse or your ex-partner, or currently the person, your current partner, but who's right now, both of you going through a messy divorce, is not ready to forgive you. And a lot of times custodial parents bear the brunt for it, because the children are withheld from them. They're not able to meet them. They're brainwashed. A lot of times they're ready to even ask for forgiveness, but the other partner will hold that against them. So there could be infidelity there could be abuse, so many other reasons for that forgiveness not to come through.
Yeah.
What is your advice on a situation like that?
So when we are, yes, so we are ready to forgive, but my ex does not want to forgive me. But I think we have to stop right in the middle. That is, I want to forgive and forget. And that's where it stops. But my ex does not want to forgive me. At this moment does not have any relevance. And it shouldn't have any relevance. The whole thing is, forgiveness is more about you. It's really not about the other person. Forgiveness is something that you need to do or that I need to do for myself. It doesn't matter whether the person on the other side, forgives you or not. So let me tell you about why it's necessary for you to forgive yourself first, which then you'll be able to understand why, or how to deal with your ex who will not forgive you or who doesn't want to forgive you. So forgiveness is something that you need to do for yourself. Forgiveness is it is an intellectual exercise for you, right? So by forgiving, you are choosing yourself, and also understand that at this moment your ex is sleeping absolutely fine. That person is, going on with his or her day. The ex is absolutely okay. But if you are not able to forgive, you are really not doing yourself any good in, the health or sanity department, right? So you must let it go. You have to, move yourself squarely into the present moment and do your best to leave the past in the past and stay here right now. So I also have seen a lot of people that in this process, they do have this tendency to complain about their ex to everyone who will listen. Right? This is also a process. This is also something that is a byproduct of this whole forgiveness aspect. Okay, fine, right? I will forgive. I will be here in the present. I will leave my past as it is. But in this process, there is a tendency for many people to actually start complaining or blaming their exes, and they will go talking about their exes to anybody who will listen. And in psychology, this is a phenomenon called spontaneous trait transference. So what this is that when you keep talking about how crazy your ex is, for example, the chances are that everybody around you is perceiving how crazy you are as well. So this is called trait transference. It's very interesting. But when you talk about how, your ex has done this, your ex has done that, your ex is like this, the net effect, of this whole description is that whoever you've spoken to about this thinks that you are the same way. So this is, something that comes up, which I tell a lot of my clients, please don't go about, bad mouthing your ex or talking about your ex. I mean, don't even say about how great you've been about forgiving that person and because that person is like this. And, that's the mind. The mind has a tendency, there's a mudslinging and all that happens at that time. So let's stay away from all that. Let's stay away from talking about or complaining about your ex. While you are in the process of forgiving that person, right? So, like I said, forgiveness, it's an intellectual exercise. It's something that you're choosing for yourself. And also understand that by accepting and forgiving your partner is not really, condoning what has happened to you or what you have done to that person. It's just accepting the fact that you can't change what has happened. Right? It's accepting the lessons from all those experiences. You're processing them, you're absorbing them for the sake of whose growth? For your own growth. Right? You're releasing all that negative energy and you're replacing it with something else. So this is what forgiveness is all about for yourself and why you need to forgive it.
Right. So I think the two things that I see here is the question that you can ask yourself. Why am I not ready to forgive? Second, on the other end of the spectrum is why am I even asking for forgiveness?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then a lot of times I think we are very hard with ourselves because we even though the relationship has ended and physically there is no connection, we are still struggling for asking and begging that relationship, the forgiveness from that relationship.
Yes.
And as I understood what you said is there probably isn't a need for us to do that. So how do we get to the space where we let go of even the need for getting that forgiveness.
Yeah. So basically this is when your ex doesn't accepting the fact that your ex does not want to forgive you, or how to deal with the fact that your ex does not want to forgive you. Okay, so now I've done my bit, I have forgiven, but this other person doesn't want to forgive me. How do I deal with this? So the first thing you have to also, I think, or let's say it could be the first or it could be the last, but you have to learn to let it go. You have to learn, or let's say, learning how to deal with someone who won't forgive you may not feel the same as just letting go. I know that, right? When you're saying, I let go of this, but when the other person doesn't forgive you, it just doesn't feel as, that you just let go. It's not as simple, right? But sometimes that's the best thing that you can do. You really can't make another person forgive you. You can only assure yourself that you have done, your best, and release that. If you've sincerely tried to make things right with someone that really matters, and they still aren't ready to forgive, your only choice is to give it some time. And in that time, people may come around after they've had a chance to process their feelings. Some people may never come around. That is also something you have to, accept. That it's possible that this person might come around, and forgive me. It is also possible that this person may never come around. So if you're still seeking forgiveness, the best thing, what you can do is forgive them also for their inability to forgive you. So every person is different, every situation is different. What worked in the past may not necessarily, work this time. So some people are there in our lives for a very controlled amount of time. You may have learned the lesson that you need, that you needed to learn from them, and now I think it's best to just focus on what needs to be done in the future. So I think a lot of people have to understand this, that people come into our lives for a particular reason. They teach you whatever you need to be taught at that particular time, and then they will go. So instead of hanging on to what was or what was done to me and how I can change, you really can't change nothing in the past. It's best to leave it as it is and try and focus on what you can do in the future. Try and focus on those aspects about yourself, for the future. Another thing to do is give people space. Give them space. So first was letting go. Second was give them space. If you have no contact with them, and if you're not, like you said, you're not in the same space, sometimes you have to allow people, to heal at their own time without any kind of interference from you. They need time to heal, they need time to mend, and it is also possible by giving them that time and space, regardless, it could be months, it could be weeks, it could be years, they will start thawing towards you at some point. Another thing is, what is your intention of seeking forgiveness? Why do you want forgiveness from this person? What is it that is not allowing you to sleep till this person forgive you? Or what is your motivation? So is it because this whole thing of them accepting your apology will make you feel better? Or is it about how they feel? Do you want to rebuild the relationship? And is it that if they don't forgive you, it might get in the way? So as much as you want to feel better about being forgiven, I know everybody loves to be forgiven, but this also has to be about them and their feelings, right? So these are probably some of the ways you can actually deal with somebody who doesn't want to forgive you. But in the end, I would always tell people that, don't give away all your power. Please accept the fact that people can choose not to forgive. An apology is not a guarantee. People can choose to forgive you if they want to. You have to be able to accept the fact that it is their choice. You have to be able to let go. You've done your bit, and now, it's up to them. If they want to apologize, if they want to forgive, they will. And also forgive them for their inability to forgive you, because everyone struggles with forgiveness. It's just not yourself. Yeah. So you may struggle with it for a bit, and then you may have found the outlet to actually release that to release it. You may have found somebody to guide you. You may have read about it. Something would have happened that caused you to forgive that person. Maybe the person on the other side has not had that opportunity yet. And they still need to wait for that time to come. They need to wait for that opportunity to come. They might need to wait for somebody to come and tell them, look, it's okay, it's time for you to release it. So
I think that's a very, very powerful thought, that you also need to develop the ability to wait for them to forgive you,
yeah,
or probably it will never happen at all. So you should be okay with both scenarios, right?
exactly, yeah. So if you
Yeah.
can forgive yourself, so in this also involves how you should forgive yourself also for whatever has happened. If you've been the perpetrator of this particular, of a crime,
Hmm.
if you have been responsible for, a lot of things, take responsibility for that, take ownership for your contribution to this relationship. But at the same time, you have to stop being harsh on yourself. See, whatever has happened, whether you've done wrong or wrong has been done to you, it's done. We can't change that. It's over. And by holding on to that resentment and carrying it into the future is only going to get in the way of our own transformation. And like I said, this spontaneous trait transference, right? We carry that story and we talk about, how you've been wronged and how, your ex has been so
Oh
difficult.
yeah. So I think all of us people who are listening to this will relate to this very well. We've all done that at some point
Yes,
of time,
definitely,
where
definitely.
we've either run out of words or steam, or just say that it's no longer worth, scraping through and then revisiting that.
But also,
So
that's part of it. I mean,
yes,
there's really,
yes,
you have to go through that process. I mean, you have
I
to go
agree.
through all that. You have to go through the trade transference. You have to go through venting. You have to go through all those emotions, till you start, or uh, till there is space, made. Because in that process of venting, you create a lot of space. You start releasing a lot of things. Even if it's venting about your ex, that's fine. To a certain extent, it's fine. Once you become aware of it, you start making more space inside. And then the forgiveness aspect will start coming in. So it is a process, and I think it's okay.
I think that's a wonderful thought to sum up this entire conversation that we've had. And I found the line that you've written about from Robert Frost's poem "A Servant to Servants" that says, "The best way out is through." And
Oh,
that's so relevant to what you just said. And I think apart from others, have patience with your own self, and also understand that this process is important. It Some stages may take some time, some stages may be faster than the others, and everybody's journey is different. So thank you so much, Reshma. Thanks for being part of this series. And I know that your thoughts and perspectives and your voice will reach a lot more parents and people. So thank you everything for what you're doing for Milaap as well.
thank you so much, Gazal. Thank you so much.